Hey, I'm Shelly.
And I'm Angela.
And this is Real Talk Dating Exposed,
where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of dating in your 40s.
Okay, our part 2 episode with Al Fuentes is the one and only rapid fire. First question. I know it's like our most tried and true and loved.
If you're on the show and you don't do rapid fire, you should question
if we like you or not. All right, Al, we love you. So here, we're going to go right now. Ready?
Okay.
All right, let's
see if
start.
I can handle it.
Is it cheating if it's just emotional?
Geez, is it cheating in general? That's the question I would say.
Okay.
Because cheating is this thing where most of the time when someone who feels like they've been cheated on, it's very disempowering concept because, oh, you cheated on me. You did something to me. No, they did something to themselves. If that's not something that you want in your life or a person you want in your life that chooses to behave that way, that's okay. Well, then they lost out on you and they lost out on an opportunity to be with you, but they didn't cheat. They didn't cheat you. They cheated themselves.
Feels very personal though.
Yeah.
You know, I think getting that concept is difficult for a lot of people.
It's very difficult. That's where it takes the self-love.
Huge. Not accept?
Ego.
You think?
Ego,
yeah. When it's done, yeah.
Well, it's just programming too. How long has it been called cheating? So emotional cheating, physical cheating. I think we take that stuff too serious.
What would you call it? If we're not calling it cheating, what are we calling it?
We're just calling it somebody who chooses to have experiences with more than one person that you do not believe in. and therefore they are not your person.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple.
Yeah. I love that.
Okay.
Okay.
Next.
Relationships great, but sex isn't.
Ooh, sex is a big deal. If you are somebody if two people don't care about sex that much, then great, then they're a fit. If one person really cares about it and the other person doesn't, then that's a deal breaker in and of itself.
What if they both care about it, but one's just terrible?
Well, that's where you get sex coach.
Jackhammer. Sorry, we're referencing back one of our first episodes. But yeah, what happens in that case?
If they both want it and one's just struggling, then you get coaching, you get therapy, you get mental work.
If everything else is solid, but then you work through that. Okay. Do you believe people can truly change who they are? Or do they just get better at hiding their truth self?
Yeah, I'm a personal example of someone who's changed. 20 plus years ago, I was an asshole in every way. I was arrogant. I was obnoxious. I was egoic. And, I'm not trying to be down on myself. You just look at the definition of asshole and there, and I really fit it. So, it just was what it was. Angry, punch walls, battle, fight, throw things, break things. And, those human constructs still exist in a very far distance in my psyche, but it's not the being that I am anymore. So yes, people can change with rewiring and work.
Love that.
And consistency. You meet someone, it's an instant connection. Is that lust, love, or childhood trauma?
It could be any of those, but it also could be something different. It could be someone you met in a past life and there's instant familiarity, instant connection. And I've had several of those. Like the higher you go in your vibration, the more you'll recognize past life people that you just have instant connections, instant relationships. Men, women, doesn't matter. You can feel them and you're just like, whoa. And
so you can tell when it is a past. Yeah.
Does it just feel familiar?
It just feels like, oh, great to see you again, kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. And most of the time if we're not in this work, then it just feels like, whoa. And then they're like, you must be my person because of that. And sometimes you're not meant to be together in this lifetime, but you have that feeling and you just keep trying and it's just misaligned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty unfortunate when we don't know that's what's going on. It's just not working, but.
Do you feel like every connection that does work though is your soul person, or do you just think there's people that meet along the way in this life that make it work?
There's not any one soulmate. That would be very limiting, universal limitation. Like there's just one soul that we could possibly be completely compatible with. Yeah. There's a lot of that. And again, the higher you go in your vibration, the more work you do on yourself, the more you see, love, and know yourself, the more opportunity you'll have to meet many different people who are at that same level on a soul level. That could be from past lives, very familiar, very soul, and like Nikki and I are that together, past lives. She's not my soulmate, but we've had a lot of great, beautiful magic together in many lifetimes. And so it's just easy. So yeah.
Love that. Mm-hmm. All right. We're switching gears now. Talking to X is a red flag.
Man, all of these probably depend on the person in the scenario. Like, I remember with my past, it wasn't a red flag for me moving forward. Maybe there was some guilt there in talking to her. Maybe there was just me wanting to feel like I was still an okay guy, even though we got a divorce. And so if she's still talking to me, that makes me an okay guy. But it doesn't make me feel like, I'm distracted or I don't want to be with another person. It was just like, hey, this is a person that I shared a lot of experiences with and wanted to still have a friendship with, but also then realizing like, maybe I was just trying to make myself feel good about like any guilt or something that I had.
But like if Nikki was like, oh, I'm still friends with my ex, like prior to you, does that bother you? Or is
no, but we don't have any jealousies or anything like that. Like, we don't have any of that concept, but
Al, number one would have.
Oh yeah. Number 1, number 2, number 3, Al would have definitely had all.
We're on Al number 4 for all of you wondering.
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like it's lines that are crossed and stuff. Yeah. But the reality is like people are going to be people. And if somebody's going to do something with somebody else, or if somebody's stuck on somebody else, or somebody's going to let other people fill up their space of value or worth or love, they're going to do that regardless of what you feel or think. So if you just let yourself know who you are and what your worth is and let people just be who they are, it'll all sort itself out. But that's really tough because I want you to act a certain way. Yeah. You need to not do this or not do that because
otherwise I'm disrespected. And
yes.
All of that.
But I feel like once they're doing it, you're kind of already disrespected. So like, to your point, if that's where they're at, then let them be there and then see how that resonates with you. I'm talking myself through this because it's a hard thing for me.
Okay, so let's say you're in the dating world. Would you, and be honest, not that you haven't been.
I've lied this entire time.
Would you judge someone by their job title?
Job title. Judge is hard. Talking to just Al number 3.
Yeah.
No. Al number 2, yes. Al number 4, I don't even judge. I just see people doing what they're doing based on their own self-worth. Every one of us are meant to be a channel of currency in this life. And so if you see your value and worth, you can't help but make money no matter who you are. Even someone who is committed to stay at home with their kids, they can't help but make money if they know their self-worth. It's just how it works. So are there people out there that are looking for others to take care of them or don't have their own value and worth and therefore doing things that don't serve them? Sure. But every job, every role has a meaning and has a purpose. Otherwise we couldn't function.
Yeah.
And so to say that, they're less of a person because they're any one thing, that'd be tough.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay. If you had 30 seconds to give someone the best breakup advice of their life, ready, set, go.
If you're going to break up with somebody, it's all about what works or doesn't work for you. It's not about anything they did. So get really clear on what honors you and what doesn't, and just say, hey, this has been a great experience of growth and learning. Even if it's been through pain, it's still a great painful experience, but it gets you to a point of letting go or moving on. And so the reality is this just doesn't serve me. It's okay. This isn't about you. This is about me and where I'm headed and what I'm wanting, because you're now already setting yourself up for your future versus you did this, you did that, you're blaming them, you're making them wrong for you choosing to honor yourself. Then you're really not honoring yourself. So honor yourself, make it about honoring yourself. So you're already setting up your future.
And then flipping that if you're the one broken up with?
Well, most of the time, if they're in dysfunction, they're not going to hear it anyway. But, if you've gotten broken up with, I wrote a very intimate letter to myself after my 3rd divorce going, okay, I'm the problem, and if somebody's doesn't want to be with me, what in me or what am I doing that makes that so? and just use it as a learning experience. But you have to really let go of ego to do that. And I realized how dysfunctional I was as I moved through my relationships. And part of it was, my biggest one was communication issues. So
yes or no? Sex without emotional connection.
Is that possible?
I mean,
we're always going to have emotions. Sex without cost. You can have sex, casual sex without cost. Most of the time though, sex comes at a price tag, and there's some energetic exchange always. There's always an energetic exchange happening. The question is that going to cost you energy or feeling or experience, or is it going to add to your, I had a beautiful sex experience with a buddy, if you will, for a long time between marriages 2 and 3, that was really healthy because it allowed me just to do some level of healing. But, I don't know if it can ever be not emotional, but it can be without a cost.
Yeah. What cost? Like okay. Yep. How do we know if we're trauma bonding, if it's a trauma bond or if it's not?
With somebody?
Yes.
If you guys are celebrating your dysfunctions, if you're celebrating...
Like, give an example.
If you are somebody who is really heavy drinker and you meet somebody who's also a really heavy drinker, and then you guys bond over a dysfunction like that, that's trauma bonding, or that's bonding through dysfunction. If you guys are dysfunctional in sex and have very unhealthy sex, and then you guys bond over that with each other, and maybe you bring in other people. There's partners that bring in other people, and it's healthy sex. But
what makes it unhealthy?
If you're not honoring yourself and honoring the experiences, and it's not a positive, if it comes at a price tag of your value and worth.
Okay. Love that.
Okay. We want the hack for manifesting true love.
We talked about this a little bit. It's just like, it's really creating a space. You can't create it if you don't even understand what it is yourself. And so first, it's what is the love you have for yourself? What is the honor? What is the worth? If you can really start to feel what it feels like to love on yourself and to nurture yourself and to take care of yourself through movement, through things like water and the quality of food and the time you're giving yourself and the value you see in yourself when you go to work. If you're not doing these things, how are you ever going to understand or notice or recognize somebody else who's has those qualities, or most of the time don't have those qualities? So start there. And then as you grow in your vibration and yourself, that will naturally start to vibrate out, and then create those experiences as you start to look out in the world. You start visualizing that person that matches those feelings you've just learned about and feel. And then you just keep working it from the inside out. And then that will start to create that person in your life.
Do you think that you can develop a true self-love without doing the inner child work?
Inner child work. What do you mean by that?
Reparenting. So look at moments in your life where maybe you didn't feel the love that you wanted or the support that you wanted, and revisiting those in those moments to give your little self what they needed. And
yes, the answer is yes. You can work on yourself today and who you are and where you want to go. In fact, a lot of times that's what I talk to people about. Here's the truth. Why do I do this? Why do I do that? Because you're human. Because your childhood. Like, do we need to know the specifics? I mean, maybe some people it could help, but the reality is we know it comes from our old programming. We know we're human. That's the why. So what do you want to do about it? And so now it's about rewiring the way you want to be now. And that's where a lot of coaching and a lot of, whether it's life coaches or even therapists, they don't know how to do the rewiring part. And that's where I feel like the work that I do has been really powerful, because I actually give people rewiring, like trainings that do that. So yeah, you don't have to revisit your childhood.
Yeah. It's funny or maybe it's not funny, but when I explain who you are to someone, I always say, you go to a therapist to stay stuck in the past, and you go to Al to start working on the future.
That's beautiful.
And that is beautiful.
Yeah. I just feel like, because therapists,
they want to talk about
have good intentions, but at some point, I did therapy for a long time, and I'm like, okay, like, why do we have to keep living in these moments, you know? And it doesn't feel self-serving. I think for me, it gave me an understanding, but I'm also the type of person that wants to like, okay, we don't need to sit here and like wallow in it, you know?
Yeah.
So let's move forward. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, imagine a cup of water that already has some dirt in it. And there are those two options where you just clean it out, wash it out, and then only put pure water in. When do we have the time to do that with our own personal selves? We got to keep going in everyday life. We got to keep working. We got to keep figuring life out, no matter what it is. And so what I say, let's do displacement. Let's bring in more of that clean, beautiful water that you want and displace and push out the soot. And that just naturally goes. And so you want more love? Who cares what happened in your childhood? What do you want today? Let's bring that in, and it'll displace and kick out the old things out of your life.
Yeah. Love that.
Love that so much. What do you feel like is harder for people in relationships, staying too long or starting over? Because I feel like a lot of people are scared to start over. So they end up staying too long with the inevitable of that it's going to get there anyway. So I don't know. We've had conversations on this too, you know, no judgment to those humans, and there's a lot of factors and things, but what do you think is worse? Or how would you even suggest and coach people to realize that their time is up and that it's okay to move on?
Yeah. I was always a lover and leaver, so I really didn't have that problem staying too long. But I do work with a lot of people that struggle with that. And the biggest challenge with staying too long is they don't know what the future looks like, and they don't know what it, and it is difficult out there, especially to find your person. And, you know, the biggest thing I would say in trying to find your person is be patient, and that's huge. But to get to that point, it's like, yeah, this sucks, or this isn't what I want, but it's safe, or it's what I know. And so I'd rather just be here in some level of mediocrity, knowing what I know, even if it's not what I fully want, than go into the unknown. And so getting people into, well, what honors your full self? What, you know, can you even believe that you can have it all? Yeah. And so that's
for
a
lot of people, I feel like.
It is tough, and it's understandable. It's normal humanness, but I would say that that's the thing I see people do is hang on too long because they're afraid of what the future holds. And
on that flip side, really quickly, when people get to that space, and I feel like this is partly me, where you've been single for so long that you almost want to stay in that space. Not that it's, you know what I mean? Like it becomes a comfort place where it's hard to rationalize getting out of that. So I feel like that's the flip side to that whole thing. Yeah. So how do you coach people through that? It's a balance between independence and partnership. And it's a lot of women and men want to stay independent, and at the same time they want to be with somebody, and yet they do all these independent behaviors and try to be with somebody, and it can get really confusing to themselves and to the other person. And so it's this hot and cold thing that happens, and I'm sure that's something you're familiar with, hot and cold. But a little bit. Yeah. So we all should be a healthy level of independence within ourselves in a relationship. The balance comes in being your own emotional self, being your own self-love, being your own self-connection, and then the person that you're with being synergistic to your life. Not someone that you get from, but someone that creates synergy for the things that you are. And so that level of independence is really healthy because you're whole, and then the other person ideally is whole, and then together you make an X factor because of that. Yeah. That kind of relationship, I know you would be totally down with. 100%. But for you, you're independent and you make all your own decisions, you do all your thing, and being in a relationship means you got to sacrifice. Yes. I mean, I'm wired. I know that's not the truth, but that is where my initial wiring goes. And that's why people who are single for a long time, that's where they struggle. And I work with people on that, but the reality is if we're working on it. Yeah. We're working on it, people. Yeah. You do not have to sacrifice who you are, but more importantly, how you see, love, and know yourself to be with somebody else.
So this kind of leads into my next question about independence. So a lot of women, I feel like it's mostly women, like I'm a strong, independent female. How does that show up from a man's perspective? when you have a woman across the table saying this, like, I'm independent, I don't need anybody, I want someone, I don't need anybody. And then is that a defense mechanism?
Most of the time it is. It's a defense mechanism because they're afraid to open up because of whatever history they have. They're afraid to give up because of whatever history, even financially, like, oh, this person, then I'm not going to be able to do me or do my thing or whatever. Independence is, you should want somebody who really wants to be self-contained in their own self. And if there's a little bit of, they don't seem like they're super into me, but yet they like being around me, that's the sign that somebody's more whole in themselves. Or they enjoy being around you, but they don't need you. And vice versa, you shouldn't want to need them. But it's very challenging and it can be very confusing because we were taught like, hey, you find your person, you rely on each other, you lean on each other, you guys are each other's, that's what makes you whole.
Yeah.
And it's not the truth. But women in general, if they're afraid of losing their independence, then they just aren't clear enough in their own boundaries within themselves and who they are. And so work on that. And then the rest gets easier.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. What else? I feel like we've been firing at you, but is there any other points that we haven't discussed that you've thought about since we've been filming that you kind of want to talk through?
I think people let me rephrase that. People come with a lot of anger into whatever relationship they're moving into next. I know I certainly did. And anger can be defined not as necessarily somebody who's in any kind of rage or any kind of fight or battle, but in this, I want and deserve more, and you have to give it to me, and it's your job to do that. And it's something that is really disempowering, because if we can just realize, well, all the emotions that I want to feel, I can give myself. And that's really hard to do. But if we were to do that, we rely so much on whatever experience, even a date, to give us something. And then the date moves into the next thing, which is more dates. And then all of a sudden we're a label of boyfriend and girlfriend. And that label now gives me comfort because now we're more. And then fiance, and then husband and wife. And the more labels, the more we put the weight on of these constructs and not on how are we showing up? How are we giving to ourselves? How are we whole? How are we creating this synergistic experience? And so if you want to replace anger with jadedness, you want to replace it with feeling disheartened, if you want to replace it with high level of expectation, but there is a grr inside us all that we are tired of XYZ and we want this. And then now you're in front of me and you better give it to me. So really checking ourselves in order to make sure that happens. That would be one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Love that.
Love that so much.
Well, we're going to wrap up part 2. And I just want to say, I mean, I've been working with you for like 3 years and you've been such a gift. So I'm glad that we can share you some more with the world, because everything you said is just so valuable. And if anything, we started part 1 saying you're going to peel back the layers and maybe open our eyes to some conditions that maybe we're not aware of. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time and just your presence. If someone wants to work with you, what does that look like? How can they get started?
I still do one-on-one coaching, which is a really powerful work. It's all customized. So I don't have some cookie cutter program I put them through. The person shows up and we really work with them where they're at and what they want to focus on. And then we drive things there. And I do require a 3-session commitment. If they reach out to you guys, reach out to me personally from my website or my Instagram, and we can talk more about coaching and what that looks like. The other thing is, I would say that there's not enough time in the day to coach everybody. So we should really do like a dating exposed live conversation, because any one of these topics we could spend an hour on. And they're so much deeper. So I would say if anyone's out there and they want to learn more about something, put a comment below and and see if you can talk these beautiful women into doing some kind of a live, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, or YouTube.
No, I think.
Yeah, we love that so much.
Yeah,
so to Al's point,
send us a message, a comment. Let us know if that's something you'd be interested in. We'd be happy to.
And what topics you'd want to discuss.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then one more time, Al, give us your website and your handle for IG.
alfuentes.com, and my handle for IG is @the.alfuentes.
Okay. And we will link all of that in the show notes. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Al. We love you.
If you're not following us on socials, please do so. And
thanks for tuning in.